name's Peyton Miller, and I grew up in Richmond, but I've lived in this area for the past 20 years. My husband, Drew Miller, I need to move. There we go. My husband, Drew Miller, is the principal at Montevideo, and I have 3 boys, one in each of the schools, and TA, Pence, and John Whalen. And I am a real estate agent with Klein May Realty. Today I've been asked to talk to you guys about small groups. And a little bit about me. I have my entire life been a think outside the box type of person that I think was probably pretty frustrating for my parents and teachers. If I enter a room and everybody is standing in a line, I am not the person that gets in a line with everyone else. I think, why are we standing in a line? What's the purpose? And is there a different way that we could do this better? So, thinking about small groups, we typically think of a small group as a small group of people that get together and maybe read the Bible, talk about God, maybe pray together. And the purpose of that group is for people to get closer in their relationships with each other and talk about real things. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about something a little bit different, more of an organic instead of artificial kind of structuring of a small group, something that kind of evolves organically either inside or outside of the church. I am currently involved in a small group with moms from Bridgewater, and a bunch of them are here this morning supporting me. And we are very close. We talk about really important, real things for us, and it's a very special group for me. But it didn't start out that way. And I'm going to share with you guys the kind of the different pieces that brought that group together this morning. Originally when we got married, I lived in the country, and I had one neighbor friend that I would see. We were young moms, and we didn't see a lot of other people. We just hung out together, and we talked about the hard things about being young moms. And I thought that we talked about a lot of things in our life that were important. But a couple months before we moved to Bridgewater, this friend shared with me that she was getting a divorce. And that was really hard for me to realize that she had been going through something and she hadn't felt like she could share those hard things with me. And I just was really sad about that situation. So then we moved, and so that was one piece that was kind of in the back of my head when we moved to Bridgewater. Another piece is that my husband is he's great. He's very intentional about our relationship. And so one time we were away for a weekend, and he had us talk through a questionnaire to develop a family mission statement. So we were answering questions, going through, and basically what we came to at the end of that time and discussion was that we were called to care for our neighbors. That was kind of as a family something that we were going to do together. And that's part of why our kids go to public school, so that we can be involved in our neighborhood and develop relationships there. So that's piece 2 of this puzzle. And then finally, I, at the time, was reading a book called 1,000 Gifts, A Dare to Live Fully Where You Are by Ann Voskamp. And the premise of that book is that you look at your current circumstances and you write down all of the things that are going on. And to get to 1,000 things, you have to get really specific and detailed. And so you're writing down things that you don't normally think of as the things to be thankful for. So as I was writing that list, I got to, it's hard to come up with 100 things, honestly. And so getting to that 1,000 was challenging. And I'm going to share with you guys a couple of the things that ended up on my list. And you may notice that some of them are part of the things that I've just talked about. So one, I have an undergraduate degree in Parks and Recreation Management. I love being outside. I, at the time, was a stay-at-home mom, and I struggled with depression. I have 3 active and outgoing boys. I have a house that has a flat half-acre yard at the end of basically a very private dead-end road. And I had a growing desire to know moms in my neighborhood. And then I had that pain of knowing that there were people in the neighborhood that were struggling and they didn't have anyone to talk to. So all of those things were on my list. And I began praying and saying, God, what do you want to do with these things? And so over the summer, he gave me this idea. I bought a big, huge water cooler like you see at sporting events and cups. And I sent out an email to everybody that I knew that had kids. And I basically said, on this morning from 9 to 11, my yard is open. And come and just hang out. And I would set out all of our chairs in our driveway, and the moms, and sometimes dads too, we would sit kind of in a way that we could watch the kids, and we would just talk. And sometimes we would talk about silly things, and other times we would talk about really important things we were struggling with. And the kids would wander in and out, and we kind of group parented. But it was this really kind of neat thing that developed out of just come and hang out. And that happened for multiple years where we did that in the summers. And we also started doing things at night so that working parents could come. We did movie night, outdoor movie night. This past summer we did cocktails and kickball for a couple of hours, a couple times. We've done a bicycle scavenger hunt in Bridgewater. So just different things like that where we can get together and have fun and get to know each other. And through all those things, we were developing friendships that wouldn't have happened outside of kind of that common thing that we had together. And then one year, I felt like God was showing me that I needed to be a little bit more intentional in those times. So I did the scary thing of inviting people into my house. My house is not very clean. And so it was hard for me to take that step from my yard inside to my house. And then the other thing is that I was asking these people that were friends of mine to be a little bit more structured in our talk. And so it was scary because I could have failed very easily in that more structured discussion time. But it worked out. And we ended up talking about the virtues of motherhood. And those talks were great because we could talk about the things that were kind of deeper, the things, the character things, the things we wanted to develop in our families. But I felt like we still weren't getting to that place where somebody could share that hard thing that they were struggling with. So I took the additional scary step of saying, okay, the last 30 minutes of our group, I want us to share a high and a low from our week. And that little extra step, that little extra piece provided that space where someone could share about how their marriage was really struggling and feel like they could share without judgment. Or someone could share about a scary cancer diagnosis and feel like they could be sad and struggling with that and be loved in that space. We've had some really hard things that have happened to different members of our group, and it's been a really amazing, supportive time together. And what I would say is that in that group, not all of us go to church, not all of us believe in God, but many of us do, and those of us who do feel free to talk about our faith because that's a major part of our life. And those of us that aren't of faith feel this is a space that's safe to also have conversations about life and the kind of circumstances that they're living it in. So I wanted to encourage you guys. I'm not asking you guys to start kickball games in your yard. What I am asking you to do is become aware of the God-given circumstances of your life. And see what kind of small group he might be calling you to. It might be a small group of 2 or 50. And so in order to not have you guys kind of think this cookie cutter experience is the way that it works, I wanted to also share with you all of the members of my family are also doing this in different ways. And so I wanted to share really quick with you the things that they're doing in their lives. My youngest brother was killed in a car accident when he was 18, And my dad has, over the years, made himself available to parents who have lost children. And so that started as one-on-one interactions with folks, and it grew, and he currently is doing a weekly grief group where not everybody has lost a child, but they've all experienced some kind of grief. And that just kind of organically grew out of those one-on-one situations. My sister lives in a really affluent neighborhood, and in that culture, showing weakness instead of just showing your strength is really hard. And so she meets with moms and she challenges them to be real and to talk about the things that they struggle with. My brother is a little bit more like me and more recreational. This past year he had a burn your Christmas tree event in his yard, and all of his neighbors brought their Christmas trees and they had a big bonfire. And then he also has like a fire pit where all the guys in the neighborhood cook meat and drink beer, but they also have real conversations during that time. And then finally, my mom is mentally ill, and she this fall spent some time in a mental hospital, and while she was there, she asked the chaplain for Bibles, and she led Bible studies in the middle of the mental institution where she was living. So I wanted to leave you guys with that encouragement to step out in faith. And when we look in the Bible, we see situations like that. Jesus called Peter to walk on water, a huge challenge. But he didn't say, I want you to jump off this tall building or go skydiving. He asked Peter to do something that was part of the path that he had placed him in, the circumstances of his life. He was calling him out. And so what I would ask for you guys today is to look at the life that you have, the path God has placed you on, and think, what are those steps that God has for me in these current circumstances? What small group can I be a part of? Thank you.